The NaviPro IT Break, 15 entertaining minutes with our experts on hot topics. They're designed to help you keep up to date on the latest IT trends.
I am accompanied today with Vivienne Suen, who is the architect at Cybersecurity IBM. Hello,
Vivienne.
Hi,
Roger. Hi. It's great to sit with you today.
Yep, same here. I'm very happy to have you here. The subject today is pretty interesting and wide. It covers very large. And one thing that I'd like to have your thoughts on is when you think about the standard attack, usually you'll have the insider threat or it's outsider threat comes in, do some escalation privilege, move laterally, expand, extract data. Standard protection, the endpoint, it's not enough. How do you address this thing?
Oh, there are so many different ways that people need to address it. And really the answer is that there's no single silver bullet. You have to have layered defenses. You have to have a ransomware mitigation strategy. You know, I think I've shared this story on the IT break before. Back when WannaCry hit, you remember the WannaCry virus?
Yeah.
When WannaCry hit, a colleague of mine who lives in Ontario went to his neighborhood paint store, wanted to buy some paint. And he walked in there and the guy said, I can sell you paint if it's a color we have on the shelf, but I can't mix any colors for you. They had one computer in this family-owned hardware store in Aurora, Ontario, and they used it to mix the paint colors, and that one computer got taken down by WannaCry. So, you know, it goes to show that he ended up paying the ransom, had to ask a nephew or whatever, what is Bitcoin, and then had to pay the ransom. And I think It just goes to show that nobody is too small to be hit. It's become very lucrative for the attackers. And I know I've talked about this before on IT Break, that they go wherever the money is. And of course, what we've seen in the last year and a half or so is the emergence of the dual exploit attack, where the hackers, not only encrypt your data, but then they also threaten to leak it if you don't pay the ransom or pay a second ransom. And I think some of the numbers we've seen indicated that the people who got hit with the ReEvil ransomware, something like 60% of clients in manufacturing and industrial and paid the ransom and then had their data leaked anyway. So, the ransomware game has changed from 10 years ago. The types of ransomware that we're seeing are becoming more sophisticated. And, you have to have some kind of ransomware risk mitigation strategy. You've got to look at your entire attack surface, and you have security tools. Everybody has security tools in different places, but you have to figure out who are the threat actors that you should worry about. What are they likely to go after? And what are the different controls that I have that help me mitigate this risk? And a risk mitigation strategy, avoidance or risk transference is a risk mitigation strategy. A lot of people will say, this is what cyber insurance is for, right? I'll pay the ransom and then I'll claim it on my cyber insurance. And I think that there was kind of a golden era where that worked for people, but that's not the way that that's playing out now. I had the opportunity to participate in a panel discussion at the end of last year along with a fellow from a Canadian insurance broker. And he spoke about some of the dynamics around cyber insurance in Canada. So here's a fun fact. In 2021, Canadian cyber insurers paid out over $3 for every $1 that they collected in premiums. This is not sustainable in the insurance industry. This is not how they like to operate, right? They're there to make money just like everybody else. Yeah. So it's not surprising that cyber insurance is becoming A, more expensive, and B, more difficult to get. There are more riders, there are more conditions, there are more things you're obligated to do. It's very common now that if you're applying for cyber insurance, the insurance company will want things like you don't get to choose your own incident response or forensics. You have to get their experts in, right? So they're becoming much more controlling about those aspects of cybersecurity, which is really unprecedented.
And the list of tools they're going to ask you to have in place,
Oh yeah.
or the list is getting longer and longer and longer.
Yeah, exactly. And all of a sudden you've got insurance brokers talking about, well, is that air gap? I'm like, wow, they've learned something about technology now. There's so we're seeing that happen. And it's not surprising at all. One of the biggest ransomware attacks that we saw last year was when the insurance company in the US, CNA Insurance, got hit. That was really notable because they paid one of the biggest ransoms ever. And I don't even want to contemplate the fines that they're going to have to pay for having rolled over and given up the ransom. But what data do you think was stolen? They stole the list of people who have cyber insurance, right? Because those are your next victims. So, the dynamics around the cyber insurance industry are changing, which is not to say that you shouldn't try and get it. If it's something that's achievable, like, why would you not do that? Why would you not insure your car? Why would you not insure your home, right? Why would you not get cyber insurance if you can? But it's not an answer anymore. It's something that you can have to help mitigate the risk. But for a lot of people, it's becoming more difficult. When we look at technical defenses around ransomware and the way things work across the kill chain, I like to think about ransomware attacks very much in terms of the cyber kill chain and the stages they go through. And to me, this represents different points in time that you have the opportunity to find the bad guys, right? And everyone's talking about zero trust security, and the zero trust approach says assume breach. So assume that they're in there and you have multiple points in time that you can find them. If you have email security tools, that's typically one of your first lines of defense, because the number one way that ransomware is spread is through email phishing, right?
Actually, I think it's 95% of the attacks comes from there.
Oh, yeah. And the reason that they do it is because it works, right? Phishing and social engineering is always going to be a thing because people are always going to be people. Your people are your greatest vulnerability, right? So employee awareness.
They are, but at the same time, we're forcing the attackers to go there. We'll put so many tools in front. So why go after a firewall going XYZ? It's much easier to go to the users.
Yeah, exactly. Who doesn't want a $200 Apple gift card, right?
Yeah, and you'll if you have to go after a firewall or something else, it's time consuming to do the attack. Whereas you buy a phishing campaign on dark web and it costs a couple of cents, and there you go, it's done.
Yeah, exactly. It's and you've hit the nail on the head. It's so easy to buy ransomware as a service. You can buy ransomware as a service now if you know where to go on the dark web. Like, why wouldn't you do that instead of having to have the technical know-how to actually go after a firewall or brute force your way through the network? So email defense and endpoint protection. Where human meets machine. I mean, that's kind of your first line of defense, and being able to detect things there and stop them before they proliferate to the network. And then after that, if things get through, attackers will always try to do things around privilege escalation. So having the right identity controls involved, right? Have a privileged access manager, because, we know this. Pretty much every single ransomware attack is going to try to either steal a privileged credentials, or they're going to try to elevate privileges for a regular user, right? And give them admin rights. So have a privileged access manager. Mm-hmm.
And they take their time. Once they're in, between the breach and the attack, I think the average is 150 or 180 days of learning your environment. They get to know your environment more than you do.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Like you can look at different places and you'll see different numbers on it. But the fact remains, whichever study you look at, we're talking about months, right? Not even weeks. We're talking about months that they're in there, because once they're in, they can take their time. And that's why people who look at network security are so focused on detecting lateral movement. Because that lateral movement, as the attacker is crawling through your network, that is really your last chance to stop this before they detonate. Yep. Lateral movement is what is how they find your sensitive data. Lateral movement is where they compromise more users. Lateral movement is how they understand who the key players are, where they figure out who might be the target of a spear phishing or business email compromise attack later on. It's where they understand where all of your vulnerabilities are. It's where they understand what defenses you have and where the weak points in your security controls may be. And it's where they're planning, when they come back, what are they going to do? We're seeing.
And you said it, the thing that you just said when they come back, because once you've paid, you're now a good customer. So on the dark web, your rank is going up, and you're a good customers, and we like to, take care of our good customers.
Yeah, exactly. We're seeing we're seeing things called polymorphic malware now, which is malware that literally rewrites itself. And it's really, really hard to detect. And the problem is that most antivirus tools are signature-based. But once the malware has rewritten itself, it has a different file hash. It's literally something different. And a signature-based solution is not going to find that. And I've seen studies that have shown that people who get hit with polymorphic malware, the reinfection rate is something like 50% within a year, because you can't find it. You can't get rid of it, right? And these new malware families are getting better and better at evading detection. They're getting better at launching fileless attacks. They're getting better at disabling your security controls as well. So it's really, you have to have those layered defenses everywhere along the way, and you have to start thinking about behavioral analysis and not just static signature-based detection.
I was actually having a discussion yesterday with a customer where he wanted not an EDR, he wanted an antivirus with signatures. I kept telling useless. I don't want to sell you this. I mean, I'm not going to quote you for something like that. It's useless. Yeah. You're going to believe you're safe, but you're not. You're just worse than you were before because you think you're safe. You're going to stop your being careful. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's fine if that's what he wants, but don't think that that's enough. I'm trying to think of a good analogy, and all I can think about is the terrible weather that we have right now with all the rain and the ice and everything. And I could go out there with my boots on, but it's not enough. It's not enough on a day like today. If I have the crampons, right, the little grip things, that I want to put that on too. We really, as security professionals, trying to combat the new families of ransomware attack and the proliferation of ransomware that we see, you've got to have those layered defenses. And then, of course, the very last stop on that kill chain, is having data security. It's always the data that they're after, right? So if you don't have a data security program, then at the end of the day, you have all your defenses, but if they get past them, you've left the safe wide open.
And you were saying before, with the dual attack exploit, leaking the data. So if you protected your data before it's encrypted, well,
they can't leak it.
They can't leak it. Yeah, they can read it. So at least that data security program is I agree with you. It's a must.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they could still theoretically encrypt on top of your encryption and then lock you out of your data. But if you have a good backup and recovery program, that's okay, right? So
a good one. Yes. But if they're there if they have been there for 6 months, they are in your backup. So in the recovery process, you will need to do your forensic to make sure that everything is clean.
Yeah, that's one of the first things that they do. They look for the backups and then they corrupt the backups. And there are solutions out there that help to address that. So, IBM has safeguarded copy. Other vendors have other things, but it has to be like that holistic end-to-end look. Yeah. And detecting that lateral movement is your last chance to detect and stop. And then the data security is your last chance to avoid paying the ransom.
Yeah, and we started the discussion. You were talking about the risk, and I think it starts from there. Discover what are your risks and what mitigation you can put in place, and then layer it, go around it, and build your security around all that. Because if you don't know your risk, you're not going to get anywhere.
If you're not looking at ransomware from a risk point of view, then you're going to miss things.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Vivienne, I think we're at the top of our 15 minutes break.
The time always goes fast when we do these.
Yeah, it really does go fast.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was really appreciated. So everybody, if you want to listen this thing again, you'll have it on our Content Hub. Where you'll find a lot of those 15 minutes break and other documentation. Thank you very much again, and we'll see you again soon on the next IT break where we're talking about endpoints, I think.
Great. Thanks, Roger. Thanks for having me back.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You want access to a range of cutting-edge information? Go to our online content area at hub.novipro.com.